First story. My ungrateful stepdaughter humiliated me. So I demanded my girlfriend ground her entitled daughter, chop her hair off, and take away her console as punishment. She refused, so I punished her daughter myself and left her out on a snowy day until she got bruises. Now I'm regretting every goddamn thing I did. They abandoned me. I'm 33M. I've been with my girlfriend 30F for just over 2.5 years. We've lived together for about 10 months. She has a 4-year-old daughter from a previous relationship. Her biological father is completely out of the picture. He hasn't seen her since birth. Doesn't pay support, nothing. She refers to me by my first name, which I prefer because I've never wanted kids, and was clear about that from the beginning. I only moved in because I thought we could make it work. And she said she respected my boundaries about not wanting to be a full-time dad figure. That's changed. Slowly, but noticeably. I've been nudged into family man territory over the past year in ways that made me deeply uncomfortable. I end up babysitting, attending preschool events, and dealing with her tantrums, bedtime routines, and all the emotional baggage that comes with a young child. Every time I bring it up, she says something like, "But you're so good with her," or "She loves you like a dad." I just suck it up and keep going because I care about my girlfriend. But I'll admit, I've never really liked her kid. I don't hate her. She's a child. But she's loud and rude, doesn't understand boundaries. And it's hard to connect with her because every interaction feels like I'm walking on eggshells trying not to lose my patience. There have been multiple moments where she said something out of line, and my girlfriend just brushes it off like, "Oh, she's just being silly." For example, last month, I bought myself a new pair of headphones, and when I opened the box, the stepdaughter threw a fit because she thought it was a toy for her. When I told her it wasn't, she said, "Why do you always get stuff and I don't?" and started crying. Instead of correcting her, my girlfriend distracted her with a snack and told me later, "Just let it go. She's still learning." That's always the excuse. She's still learning. Anyway, fast forward to this past weekend. I've always kept my hair long, curly, shoulder length. It's kind of a big part of how I look. But I hadn't cut it in almost a year, and it was getting hard to manage. I started feeling self-conscious because it looked less intentional and more like I didn't groom myself. My girlfriend has always said she liked it, so I kept it for a while. But I finally decided to cut it short. My girlfriend thought it would be cute if her daughter and I went to get haircuts together. I didn't love the idea of a bonding activity, but I figured, fine. Let's just get it over with. I agreed, and we booked appointments for the same day. We get to the salon. I go first. The stylist does a good job, honestly. But the second I turn around in the mirror, I already feel weird. It's not that it looks bad, it just looks unfamiliar. I'm feeling exposed and uncomfortable. But I smile and act like it's fine. I walk back to the waiting area where my girlfriend and her daughter are sitting. There are 2 older guys across the room reading newspapers. I sit down, and the moment the kid looks up at me, she bursts out laughing and says, loud as hell, "You look silly." I don't know how to describe the feeling, but it hit me like a slap. I was already feeling self-conscious and vulnerable, and here I am getting laughed at by a kid I don't even want in my life to begin with. My girlfriend immediately goes into mum mode and tells her, "Hey, that's not polite. You wouldn't like it if someone laughed at you, etc." And the kid mumbles, "Oh yeah, oopsie," turns to me and says, "I'm sorry, my name. I just think you look silly with no curly curls. I'm sorry for laughing." It didn't feel like an apology. It felt like she was parroting what she thought would get her out of trouble. My girlfriend looked at me like, "See? All better." But I wasn't fine. I got up, said, "Way too effing rude," and walked outside. I know it seems like an overreaction, but this wasn't about one comment. It was months of pent-up frustration over having to constantly accommodate a kid I didn't sign up for, getting laughed at while already feeling insecure, and knowing damn well that if I ever said something remotely that disrespectful to an adult at her age, my parents would have pulled me aside and made sure I learned something from it. Here, she giggles, says, "Oopsie," and it's forgiven in seconds. I went back inside and said to my girlfriend, "Outside, now." Once we stepped out, I told her I wanted her to either cancel the kid's haircut or have it cut short, and that she needed to actually discipline her. At the very least, she should take away her Nintendo 2DS for the day and put her to bed early. She looked at me like I was insane. She said, "She already apologized. I'm not punishing her for that. She's 4. I said, "She's 4 and rude, and you're teaching her there are no consequences for anything." She refused. She said it wasn't that serious, and she wasn't going to make her miss her haircut over it. I told her if she wasn't going to back me up, then I was leaving. She didn't stop me. I walked away, angry, not sure what I was going to do. I didn't answer her calls. Instead, I drove back to our apartment, grabbed my stuff, unlocked the front door, left her keys hanging on the wall, and left. I didn't hear from her for almost 2 hours after I left. I figured she found a ride or rescheduled. She finally called around 4:30. I didn't answer. She texted once. "We're walking. You have my keys." I ignored it. She called again, then again. Still didn't answer. At that point, I was already halfway done packing. I knew I wasn't staying. I had my console, clothes, TV, and a couple drawers worth of stuff. Before I left, I made sure the door was unlocked and left her keys on the hook by the door. It was the same hook where she always put them, right next to the light switch. I left around 5:15. It was snowing. Not hard, but that wet kind that melts just enough to make your socks useless in minutes. Slush everywhere, sidewalks still half frozen. I parked at my friend's place and stayed there for the night. She finally got through to me by text around 6:30. She said she and her daughter had to walk the full 20 minutes home, mostly along snowbanks because the sidewalks were too iced over. The kid was crying because her feet were soaked. My girlfriend was furious because she said she'd been having pelvic pressure lately, and walking through snow made it worse. She's not pregnant, she has some medical thing where standing or walking too long causes pain. We've seen the doctor about it before. She got home and said the apartment was unlocked and freezing, and my stuff was gone. She found the keys and said she'd assumed I was coming back. When she realized I wasn't, she texted, "You left us stranded. Why would you do that?" I finally replied around 7. "That was your consequence for refusing to hold your kid accountable. You expect me to play stepdad, but you won't even back me up once." She blew up. Said I was cruel, petty, and abusive. That I endangered them. That it was my responsibility to get them home safe if I was the one who left. I've spent months watching my boundaries get erased. She wanted to treat me like a father when it suited her. But the moment I asked for basic respect, I was too harsh. Her daughter gets to cross every line because she's 4, and apparently 4 means never wrong. She said I made her daughter cry. That she was confused and scared because I stormed out. That she asked if I was coming back, and my girlfriend had to lie and say yes. I didn't respond to that one. Here's the part where I know people will have strong opinions. I think leaving was fair. If she won't correct her daughter for disrespecting me to my face, why am I staying? Why am I bending over backwards to help raise a child when my only ask some support in enforcing boundaries gets thrown out? It's not just the haircut thing. That was the tipping point. Let me give a few other examples. 3 weeks ago, the stepdaughter dumped my bowl of cereal on the couch because I wanted the blue bowl. Girlfriend told her, "That's not nice," and handed her the blue bowl without a timeout or anything. She regularly interrupts when I'm on the phone for work, screaming that she wants to play or demanding snacks. And if I say, "Not now," I get told I'm too cold. She once told me, "You're not my real dad anyway." Which is fine, because I'm not. But when I told my girlfriend that hurt, she just shrugged and said, "Well, she's not wrong. It's always a joke, or a phase, or just a kid being a kid." But I'm not allowed to get upset. I'm supposed to take it, reset, and act like it didn't happen. This haircut thing was different because I was already raw. I've had long curly hair since I was 20. It's a part of how people know me. I finally cut it, felt vulnerable, and the first thing out of her daughter's mouth was to laugh at me. Not a giggle. A loud, mocking laugh in a quiet room with strangers watching. I asked for a basic punishment, a short haircut, so her daughter would realize she wasn't supposed to laugh at someone's appearance. No game console for a few hours, and an early bedtime. And even that was too much for my girlfriend. So yeah, I left. Not forever, maybe, but I needed space. I took my stuff. I went somewhere safe. I didn't slam doors or call anyone names. I just opted out. Now she's telling people I abandoned them. Her friends are calling me a deadbeat, even though I'm not her kid's father and never wanted to be. One of her friends texted me, "You left a child in the snow over a haircut." That's not what happened, but that's the story she's running with. I don't know anymore. Maybe I overreacted. Maybe I let everything boil over at once. But I honestly felt like I was being pushed into a life I never signed up for. And the moment I stood up for myself, I was treated like I was heartless. Ada? Comments. Comment 1. Jesus, you're the YT and a coward on top of it. You knew for months that you didn't want to be in that stepdad role, and you just kept swallowing it until it festered into straight-up contempt. Instead of breaking up like a grown-arse adult, you stuck around building resentment towards a toddler. She laughed at your haircut, dude. Not your trauma. Not your bank account. Your hair. You're the 33-year-old in this equation. That wasn't pent-up frustration that justified leaving them stranded. That was a grown man throwing a tantrum because a kid bruised his ego. And let's be real. You wanted her to hurt the way you felt hurt. And you used her daughter to do it. That's some emotionally manipulative crap. And I say that as someone who agrees you should have never been pushed into that family role. But leaving her without a way home in bad weather. Taking your stuff and ghosting her. Nah, you just nuked it from orbit instead of using your words like a goddamn adult. Comment 2. Hard YTA. You stayed. You chose to move in. You knew the kid existed. You knew her dad was out of the picture. And you still decided, yeah, I'll take that on, even though you didn't want kids. That was your mistake. But instead of being honest or setting firm boundaries, you simmered in your resentment until a child said the most 4-year-old thing possible, and you snapped. You punished a woman and her daughter for your own bottled-up bullshit. You left them out in freezing weather, knowing the sidewalks were dangerous, knowing she had a medical condition, and knowing they had no other way home. And you called it a consequence. No, dude, that was punishment. That was cruelty. Effing hell, if a stranger did that to a woman and child, we'd call it neglect. But you were her partner. That's not just an arsehole move. That's effing deranged. Comment 3. YTA. What the actual F is wrong with you? She's 4. Everything is funny to a 4-year-old. You got a haircut, and she laughed. That's not a personal attack. That's a toddler reacting to something new in the only way toddlers know how, with unfiltered honesty. She even apologized. And instead of being the adult you supposedly are, you stormed off like some moody teenager, and then abandoned a woman and a small child in the goddamn snow to make a point. You absolute psycho. You could have talked to your girlfriend later. You could have just said, I need space. You could have ended the relationship like an adult. Instead, you used this kid's harmless comment as an excuse to finally unleash all the resentment you've been stewing in. You didn't just leave. You deliberately set them up to suffer for not disciplining her over words. You're not a victim here. You're a coward who weaponized weather and guilt like a effing lunatic. Update. I wanted to post a follow-up because everything blew up a lot harder than I expected. I'm not here for sympathy, and I'm not pretending people didn't have valid criticism. But the situation took turns I didn't think were possible, and I guess I need to get this out. After I made the original post, I cooled off for about 2 days. During that time, I stayed at my friend Mark's apartment. Mark was neutral at first. He didn't know the full story yet. But once my girlfriend talked to a couple of mutuals and word started spreading, the tone around me changed fast. The first thing that happened, her family and friends iced me out completely. Her sister texted Mark and said he should kick me out because I abandoned a child in an unsafe environment, and that I was emotionally dangerous. When Mark showed me the messages, I could tell he suddenly didn't want to be associated with the drama. By day 3, he asked me to start figuring out another place to stay. Not a formal eviction or anything, but the tone was clear. He didn't want this landing on him. Around the same time, my girlfriend sent me the first set of pictures. Images of her daughter's soaked shoes, little socks that were basically black with melted snow and dirt, her own jeans wet up to the knee, and then a close-up of her shin with a bruise. I didn't know if she slipped or hit a snowbank wrong, but I instantly knew what she was implying. The timing lined up with their walk home. A couple of hours later, she finally texted, "Don't ever contact us again. If you do, I'll send these pictures to the police and to CPS. I have phone records, timestamps, and witness statements that you left us stranded intentionally." I didn't respond because I genuinely didn't know what to say. I wasn't trying to get the cops involved. I acted out of frustration, not malice. I thought she'd cool off, too. Instead, I made the dumbest decision possible. I went back to the apartment complex not to get inside, but because I thought maybe if I saw her car or caught her outside, I could apologize. I wasn't planning anything dramatic. I wasn't trying to force contact. I just wanted to apologize to her and her daughter and tell them I'd acted impulsively. While I was waiting near the parking lot, I saw her walking out with her daughter. The kid looked fine, bundled up, carrying a stuffed animal, not scared or crying. That honestly made me feel relieved. I called her name softly, not yelling, not approaching, just trying to start a conversation. Her daughter looked at me first and said, "Hi," but my girlfriend immediately stepped between us and snapped, "Do not talk to her. Get away from us." She pulled out her phone and said if I said one more word, she'd call the cops on the spot. I backed up and said I just wanted to apologize to both of them. That didn't help. She told me she was filing for a restraining order first thing the next morning. And she did. I got the paperwork 2 days later. The order included the bruise photos, the messages she'd sent me, the call logs, and a statement saying she feared I'd continue to punish her emotionally if I had access to them. Honestly, the timeline didn't look good for me. I can blame intentions all I want, but the facts still look like I abandoned a woman and child in winter, and then showed up at their home days later. Then things with Mark got worse. He saw the restraining order envelope on the coffee table. He didn't even ask for details. He just said it crossed a line, and that I needed to find another place within a week. I don't blame him. Nobody wants cops showing up at their apartment because their friend can't keep his relationship under control. Within that same week, one by one, everyone stopped responding to me. Mutual friends, and even my sister told me she needed space from the drama. I wasn't being physically violent, and I wasn't threatening anyone. But the narrative around me was solid. A guy emotionally unstable enough to leave a child in the cold. Even after all of that, I still didn't feel like the monster everyone painted me as. I know this is where people will say I should feel guilt or have some huge emotional awakening, but I honestly didn't. I wasn't sitting there thinking, wow, I'm an abuser. I was thinking, I acted out of frustration and didn't mean for it to go that far. I know that doesn't make it okay, I'm just being honest about where my head has been. I did try therapy. One session. The therapist asked about my childhood after I explained the situation. I told her about how my parents used shame as discipline, and how I always felt humiliated when I messed up as a kid. She tried connecting that to why the haircut incident triggered me so badly. I didn't disagree, but it didn't suddenly change how I felt or make me feel like I'd grown as a person. I stopped going after the second appointment because it didn't feel productive. My girlfriend mailed me the rest of my belongings through her lawyer. The letter inside said if I attempted to reach out directly, or through anyone else, she'd forward every piece of documentation to the police and CPS. She had screenshots of everything, including messages where I said leaving them was her punishment. Seeing that in printed form made me realize how bad it looked. Right now, I'm staying at a cheap weekly rental on the edge of town. I haven't talked to anyone, the front desk lady. I'm not spiraling or having panic attacks or anything dramatic. I just feel flat. Detached. I don't feel like some criminal. I don't feel like a redeemed man either. The whole situation feels like something that happened to someone else. I keep telling myself I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I acted out of frustration. I didn't think the walk home would become such a big deal. I didn't think she'd actually follow through with a restraining order. I didn't think everyone would take her side so completely. But intention doesn't erase consequences. I'm starting to accept that, even if I still don't feel remorse the way people expect. That's where things stand. I don't expect reconciliation. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted to update. Comments. Comment 1. This is terrifying, honestly. You keep saying, I didn't mean to hurt anyone. But what the hell did you think was going to happen when you left a 4-year-old and her mother to walk home in slush and ice? You planned it. You took the keys, packed your SHT, and left that door unlocked, knowing she had no ride, no backup, and physical issues. That's not a lapse in judgment, that's calculated cruelty. You wanted them to suffer to prove a point. And now you're acting like a ghost in your own story, like, oh well, guess that's how things go. It's creepy. No ownership, no actual apology, just distance, and this hollow emotional shrug. You say you didn't feel like a monster, but you sure as hell acted like one. And the kicker? You still think you're the one people should feel sorry for. Unreal. Comment 2. OP, you seriously need to stop blaming everyone around you for the life you willingly signed up for. You moved in with a woman and her child. You knew her kid was part of the deal, and instead of opting out, you decided to hang around and stew in resentment. You could have left months ago, but you didn't. You stayed until you could create a narrative that made you feel justified walking out. That's manipulative. Also, her getting a restraining order. Smart. She was protecting her kid. You were warned not to contact them. Then you deliberately returned to the apartment complex, approached them, and thought that just wanting to apologize would make it okay. That's boundary stomping. Your whole post reads like you think you're the tragic antihero. But in reality, you're a guy who escalated emotional neglect to actual endangerment, and then tried to reframe it like a breakup gone wrong. Comment 3. I'm not going to pile on like everyone else. Yes, YTA, obviously. But here's what's really jumping out at me. You seem completely emotionally disconnected from the harm you caused. Not in a sociopathic way, more like someone who's never actually been forced to think about other people's emotional experiences. You say you didn't feel remorse, but the whole situation demands remorse. Not performative guilt. Real, internal OSHT, I effed this up and caused harm type awareness. That's missing. You didn't just act out of frustration. You engineered the perfect storm for a fallout, and then distanced yourself like a bystander. That emotional detachment. That's what makes people so disturbed by your story. It's not that you made a mistake. It's that you still can't connect the dots between your actions and the very real pain you caused a little girl and her mother. Update. I didn't think things could get worse after the restraining order, but they did. My life has basically unraveled in every direction, and I'm not even sure what to do anymore. I'm writing this out because I don't have anybody left to talk to. After living in that weekly rental for a bit, my money started drying up faster than I expected. I didn't have savings because most of my money used to go towards the apartment and supporting my ex and her kid. With Mark kicking me out and no other friends willing to offer a couch, I ended up staying in my car for a while. Then the car started having issues. The battery kept dying in the cold, and eventually I had to leave it parked near a shopping plaza. I didn't have the cash to fix it. That's when things got dangerous. One night, while I was trying to sleep behind the plaza, a group of teenagers or young guys, I don't know, came around the lot yelling and messing around. One of them saw me sitting against the wall and started taunting me. I ignored it, but they kept going. Before I could even stand up, they rushed me. I don't know if they were drunk or just idiots looking for trouble, but they shoved me down, kicked me a few times, and took the few things I had on me: my headphones, a hoodie, and an old backpack with almost nothing in it. Nothing serious got broken, just bruises and a cut on my cheek, but it shook me. I didn't report it because I didn't want to sit in a police station for hours explaining why I was living behind a shopping center. A few days after that, I ran into someone from my past, some guy named Leon who I used to bully in middle school. I honestly didn't even recognize him at first, but he sure remembered me. I was sitting outside a gas station heating my hands over one of those little metal ashtray things, and he came out, looked at me for a second, and said, "Holy SHT, look at you now." I didn't respond. He smirked and said something like, "Guess life comes back around, huh?" Then he walked off. He didn't touch me or anything, but the humiliation hit harder than the kids who jumped me. I don't even know why. Maybe because I realized how far I'd fallen. All of this happened while I was also trying to date again, thinking maybe meeting someone new would help me stabilize. Total failure. I went on one date with a woman from an app. She asked why I wasn't living at my old place anymore, and I stupidly told her the truth about the argument, the snow incident, and the restraining order. She didn't freak out, but she ended the date early and unmatched me by the time I got back to the motel. I can't even blame her. I also tried talking to one of my old coworkers who was still on neutral terms with my ex. I didn't ask anything crazy, just if she and her daughter were doing okay. He told me he didn't feel comfortable being a pipeline to a woman who had to get a restraining order, and he blocked me after that. Every person I've reached out to has slowly pulled away, like I'm toxic by default now. And here's the part I know people will rip into me for. I tried to apologize again. Not because I thought she'd take me back, but because the guilt, or something like guilt, wouldn't stop nagging at me. I kept replaying the walk home in my head, the bruise on her leg, the kids' soaked shoes. Then I'd get defensive with myself and think, I had it worse growing up. I walked miles home in storms. Nobody cared. I kept telling myself her daughter wasn't traumatized, she's resilient. She probably forgot about it the next day. That's how I justified it to myself. I waited until I thought she wasn't home. I didn't go to the door or try to see them. I stayed across the street near the mailbox area because I wanted to leave a letter. Just a letter apologizing. I wasn't thinking about the restraining order. I know that sounds stupid, but I really just wanted them to know I wasn't their enemy, and that I never wanted to ruin their lives or mine. But she saw me. I didn't notice she was pulling into the parking lot until she honked. I froze. She got out of the car immediately and screamed at me to leave. She threatened to call the police right there. The daughter was in the back seat, staring at me. I didn't wave or say anything because I knew that would only make things worse. I walked away, and I could hear her talking on the phone, probably to her lawyer. I'm sure another warning letter is coming. I know people will say I'm still not understanding the reality of what I did, but I'm trying to make sense of everything. I was angry about the haircut already. I felt exposed and insecure. The stepdaughter laughing wasn't her being evil, it was a kid reacting to something funny. But in that moment, it hit me harder than it should have. I snapped because I felt small, not because I wanted to be cruel. I know I messed up. I know I ruined the relationship. But I don't think it's fair that one mistake, one outburst, has destroyed my entire life. I had a lot to offer as a partner. I could have been a good stepdad if I had more time. I even told myself that once the daughter accepted me more fully, I'd commit to the role completely. I still would if I were given the chance. But I guess that doesn't matter now. Everyone's gone. Every bridge is burned. And I don't know how to build anything back. Comments. Comment 1. You're not introspecting. You're spiraling. Big difference. Everything in your update screams self-pity disguised as reflection. You mention getting jumped, getting humiliated, getting rejected, but the moment you talk about the actual harm you caused, you deflect. You compare her daughter's trauma to your own like it's a pissing contest. You frame a calculated abandonment as an outburst. No, dude, this wasn't some unfortunate explosion. It was control masked as disappointment. And FYI, the world doesn't owe you a second chance just because you've got a lot to offer. You lost that shot when you decided your ego was more important than their safety. Own it. This is what accountability looks like. It's not supposed to be comfortable. Comment 2. I've worked with kids for over a decade, and let me tell you, the number of men I've seen who want the title of father figure without doing the emotional labor is staggering. You were never going to be a good stepdad. You wanted the kid to earn your affection first. That's not how parenting works. You treat love and care like it's conditional. If she behaves how you want, then you'll accept her. 4-year-olds don't work on contracts. And this whole thing where you blame your haircut and say, "You were already insecure, bro," she giggled. She didn't call you a monster. She didn't even insult you. She laughed. You blew up because deep down, you were already pissed you were in a family you didn't actually want to be part of. And you punished them for it. That's not one mistake. That's a pattern finally peaking. Comment 3. You keep acting like you're being crucified for a single, bad moment. But everything you've written screams that you've never taken a single real step towards accountability. You don't feel bad for what you did, you feel bad that it cost you everything. And that's not remorse. That's a consequence. You call it unfair, but what's really unfair is that your ex and her daughter had to learn the hard way what kind of man you were. You say you want to be a good dad, cool. You had the chance. You burned it. That door's closed. Move on. And stay the F away like she asked. Second story. My sister found out she was adopted, and my parents made her a golden child, neglecting me, buying her a car on my birthday. Then I overheard them saying my sister was chosen without hormones. I told them I stormed in and asked, "So I'm not family?" And they demanded I apologize to my sister for interrupting their convo. I am 15F, and I have an older sister, Leela 17F. Recently, I found out that Leela was adopted before I was born. My mother was considered infertile. I was a 1 in a million miracle baby that defied the odds. So she and my father adopted Leela. Throughout my life, they've been pretty good parents. They love us both, and they've never treated Leela and me any differently. But then Leela discovered she was adopted, and no, they didn't tell either of us. After some initial, "Why didn't you tell me?" and identity issues, Leela seemed fine. I don't know if she was, but she seemed normal. She was at first angry at them for keeping it a secret, but eventually cooled off. But for the past 4 months, my parents have been prioritizing Leela. They told me they assure Leela that blood doesn't change family makeup for keeping the fact she was adopted from Herrick. I think they feel guilty. I get wanting to reassure Leela that, blood or not, she is a part of this family. But they have been continuously favoring Leela for these past months. They missed my high school play, instead staying home and serving snacks to Leela and her friends during movie night. On my birthday, they got Leela a freaking car. For my birthday. They've been going on dates with her, serving her favorite meals, getting her little gifts, getting nothing from me, and missing out on my things for Leela. I'm really not trying to sound like a spoiled brat, but I feel like in trying to make Leela feel like she still belongs, they're neglecting me. I don't even think Leela wants it. I mean, what 17-year-old wants to spend loads of time with her parents? It all came boiling out last Monday. There was traffic on my way home from school, so my parents and Leela were eating dinner. They had gotten Chinese from Leela's favorite restaurant, and were all eating when I walked in. I overheard my mom telling Leela, "We chose you for our family. I loved you even without birthing you, without hormones telling me to." I feel like that's the most important thing of all. I don't know, but it kind of felt like a dig. It got me thinking, if my mom didn't give birth to me, would she love me any less? If it wasn't me she gave birth to, she won't ever know the difference. She would just love that child because hormones told her to. I blew up. I ran into the room, crying. I told my family, "I guess we're not really family, right? Since you didn't choose me." I then ran into my room. My parents said they were sorry if I thought Leela was being prioritized, but they also said I should apologize to Leela, as they were having an emotional discussion that I interrupted by barging in and yelling. They said I was old enough not to be a spoiled baby, okay? They didn't exactly say that, but they said I was acting spoiled, hence the title, that I knew this was hard on Leela, and I should be nicer. I'm just done. So exhausted and fed up with this all. I've barely spoken to them since Monday. So, Ada. Alright, I just wanted to clarify one thing. So, when my parents got Leela a car for my 15th birthday, they said it was for both of us. But in my country/state, 15-year-olds are only allowed to drive with a learner's permit. My parents said they got me a car because it was my 15th birthday. I was going to get a learner's permit, blah, blah, blah. But I couldn't drive the car until I had a learner's permit. And Leela has a driver's license. And the car was a pickup truck. A style Leela has said she always wanted. So it was pretty clear. It was Leela's car. Comments. Comment 1. NTA. Your parents are insane. Nearly 2 decades of good parenting are being destroyed by them. And they don't care. OP. Looking back now, I think my mom was always a bit of a narcissist, and my dad a pushover. Like, she would buy me clothes that definitely weren't my style in an effort to make me more like her. But they're not bad parents. They've just made a few pretty big mistakes. OP replied to a big comment. First off, thank you for this message. You seem like a great parent. A few hours after I posted the initial post, Leela actually apologized for our parents. Things have been a little tense in the house, but we went for a joyride in her new car. I have no idea about my parents, but I've been talking with Leela, and apparently, this whole thing started when she mentioned wanting to find her biological parents. My parents kind of blew up and started trying to prove to her that she didn't need them, blah, blah, blah. Comment 2. I was so ready to call you an in the beginning, but holy cow. I'm so sorry. NTA. Can you spend some time at your grandparents' or aunt and uncle's house? I'm actually worried about you. You are worthy of love no matter what. OP. Well, my parents aren't physically abusive, and I can handle emotional abuse, so no grandparents yet. But things are still defiantly rocky in our house. Leela told me she's thinking of going to our aunt's. She's like around an hour away because of this whole thing. I'll go if she goes because I'm not going to be with my parents alone, but otherwise I can still fly under the radar. They're still hyper-focused on Leela, now even more so because I'm acting so jealous and petty. Comment 3. Copy this post and comments. Email this to your parents. Sometimes it's overwhelming to express yourself when face-to-face, but you've written about your hurt very well here. Also, it should be pointed out to your folks that they're causing a rift between you and your sister. For fear of losing your older sister, they've overcompensated and may eventually lose you if they don't fix things. Your parents have completely effed up and mismanaged this entire scenario. And buying your sister a car on your birthday. WTF is that? Hard NTA, not by a long shot. OP. I'm going to do that. They were really good parents when I was younger, and I love my sister. I just want things to go back to normal. Update. So, update time. First off, I've been reading all your messages and thank you so much. I honestly thought the vote would be a little more divided. So, Leela and I took a joyride. Rereading my post, I think I was jealous and a little angry at Leela, which she totally did not deserve. Those were just my feelings. But anyway, Leela and I got to talking. Turns out she mentioned wanting to find her birth parents, which is how this whole mess started. My parents flipped, taking Leela wanting to find her birth parents as some kind of attack instead of simple curiosity. Things are definitely still rocky in my house, but Leela's on my side. We're both searching for her parents together. Some of you suggested showing this post to my parents. I think I'm going to show it to my grandmother or my aunt first and get their advice. None of my family uses Reddit, so there's no chance of them coming across this post. I just want my parents back. Update. So I am going to talk to my aunt and grandmother. But first I thought I should update you because some things went down. So, Leela confronted our parents. And by confronted, I mean blew up. They both cried. Turns out, she isn't over them, never telling her about her adoption, and really reamed into them for that. Should have been obvious, but I guess she just seemed fine to me. She said, "You're so scared of empty nest syndrome that you're going to end up pushing 2 daughters away. I don't feel like part of the family with you guys favoring me and acting like I'm gonna run away at first glance." Then she stormed off. Because of this little spat, my dad actually gave me a real apology, not butts or gaslighting. My mom hasn't given me an apology per se, but we've talked about the whole "we chose you, hormones didn't make us do it" thing. I'm going to do what some of you suggested and send this post to them. I'm not going to cut them out. I'm still only 15, but I do have some form of escape plan. I don't think they're toxic, just humans who made a mistake and now are trying to make up for it with other mistakes. I talked to my aunt and grandmother, and they gave me some advice. My winter break is coming up, so I'm going to stay with them for that week just to let things cool off. When I told them I was going to stay at my aunt's, my dad seemed resigned, while my mum started crying. She said it felt like she was losing both of her daughters. I suggested family therapy, and it seemed like it was well received. I'll update you guys if they schedule an appointment. For right now, I'm just operating like I'm permanently moving out and seeing what comes from there. Update. I don't think anyone really cares about this, but I recently reread my old post and decided to write a short update. In my last post, I talked about how my parents were kind of narcissistic. Not true, just 15-year-old me experiencing teenage angst and starting her emo phase. Being sometimes self-centered or attention-seeking is completely different from being a narcissist. My experience doesn't even come close to someone who was actually raised under that abuse. It's a late apology. But I'm sorry. Leela and I are good. Better now since she actually went away to college. And I realize I like spending time with her when I'm not forced to be in her proximity. We send each other random memes and texts, but we don't see each other that often. She did reconnect with her bio family. My parents and I flew out to meet them, and they were so nice. They gave her up because Leela had some health complications that required surgeries they could not afford. Since she was still in the baby age, they knew it was most likely she'd be adopted right away and could have a life without the complications, which she did. We also got to meet Leela's extended bio family, which was the best part of the trip. So many of them cried upon seeing her walking and kept on thanking my parents. The bio family and ours aren't really close, but it was nice to meet them. I did stay with my aunt for 2 weeks. She was kind, but she also had her own life going on, so I ended up alone a lot. I started journaling, which has done wonders for my mental health. That was the kick in the teeth my parents needed. They looked for therapies, but it took another few months before they found one covered by their insurance. In the meantime, I moved back in, and it was bad and good. We argued because I was a kid, still am, but my mom and dad did this thing where they chose one singular spot for each of us where we'd hang out. From mine, it was this spa around half an hour away for my dad, and a small dog park for my mom. We also adopted a dog. Anyway, now I'm applying to colleges, and life sucks. Comments. Comment 1. In your original post, you mentioned maybe showing it to your parents. Did you ever get to do that? OP. Yes, sorry, I thought I already mentioned that. I showed my aunt before I showed my parents, and asked if I could stay with her over winter break. During winter break, I sent the post to my parents. So I was out of the firing range just in case. That's when they started trying to get me to come home and looking for therapy. Comment 2. Lolled at your last line. I hope that was meant to be funny. Comment 3. I laughed too. Having a daughter who is now in 3rd year uni, having come out the other side of the hell process, that is university application time. I have lots of sympathy for OP. But glad to hear her update, and that things are getting worked out. Her parents sounded unbalanced, but it also sounds like they are trying to right the ship. Comment 4. I'm glad to hear you and Leela and your parents are doing better. Being a teenager is hard. Emotions are very intense. Both you and Leela went through a big learning situation that your parents thought they'd be able to hide from both of you. They were unprepared and handled it terribly. Thanks for the updates. Good luck with college. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.